Leveling up. Extreme business growth through raising your game. When what was once extraordinary becomes ordinary, you know you've leveled up.
Hello and welcome. Today we are recording this on the move on Easter Sunday. This episode will be going out on Easter Monday, so happy Easter if you acknowledge such things. Today I have Tracey Miller, my partner in life and in business. I talk about her a lot, normally right at the end of each episode, and today we are in the car together, so I thought I'd bring her in because she looks after all of the sales that we do across the whole of the business. She's got, I think, 20 years plus in sales. She'll tell me if that's different in a minute. And I thought I'd bring her in and talk about the state of the nation, the state of play with regards to sales right now, because, as I keep saying over and over again, sales is what grows businesses. And if you're struggling right now, sales is what's going to save your business. Well, welcome to the Level Up Podcast with me, George Swift. The Level Up Podcast is here to give you the personal development, the entrepreneurial development, and the business growth that you, the ambitious business owner, desires. I'm here to give you the inspiration, the motivation, but above all else, as always, to give you the aspiration to take you and your business to the next level. Okay, Tracey, talk to me. The title of this episode is how, yes, sales probably is tougher. What are you finding right now?
Well, first of all, hello. It's very nice to be here. I'm definitely finding sales tougher. Not necessarily getting people in to see what we do. I actually think that's easier. So I think right now the market is quite buoyant in that respect. But the bit that I'm finding tougher is actually getting people to make a big decision. So getting them over the line to commit to anything kind of long term, which is fundamentally what you need to grow a business. So that bit I'm definitely finding tougher at the moment.
And I think that's fair to say, actually, because I think one of the things we're finding across the whole of the club, the whole of success groups, is where people, they've got lots in play, they're having lots of sales conversations, but they're really struggling to push it across the line. And people are taking longer to say yes, and more people are kind of saying, let's do it later, let's put it off. I've got my own ideas of why I think that is. From your experiences at on the front line for BBB, what are you finding?
So I think there's a couple of things for me. So I think the reason people are much more interested at the moment in having the sales conversations is because more people are looking for something. So given the nature of what we've been through over the last 12 months and the transience of the business world and the economy and political, economic, technical, social landscapes. I mean, it's just in constant change. So I think people are waking up to the fact that they need help to navigate this, and so they're really open to the sales conversation and the possibility. Where the crunch comes, which is also linked to the transience of the environment that we're in at the moment, is when they are asked to commit to a certain amount of time. Now, we know in our business that we I'm sure you've mentioned it, but we don't sell a magic pill. It takes time and energy and effort to create the growth that we're looking to create with our members. So we get them to commit, but it's that commitment that's causing them problems and challenges. So when they can't predict what's going to happen tomorrow, given the nature of what's happened, government decisions. So it's very hard, I think, at the moment for people to make long-term decisions about the growth of their business. I think that's one thing. On the other side is, as the market changes, so as more people either get made redundant from the corporate environment or are reevaluating life, so they realise that actually the corporate job that they were holding isn't the job that they want, and they're looking for more freedoms and more autonomy around how they run their lives. As more of those guys come out into the market, more of people like us come out into the market as well. And interestingly, I did a short video yesterday about exactly this, which is my frustration around business coaches coming onto the market looking really experienced and knowledgeable, charging inordinate amounts of money and not being able to deliver because they just don't have the experience. And I appreciate people need to start somewhere, but to position yourself as someone with all the experience when you don't have it, I think is fundamentally wrong. And so as more of these people come out into the market, it creates more uncertainty about where you should spend your time, money and energy to get the result. So I think those two things in conjunction are making sales tougher. It doesn't mean it's not possible, it just means we need to approach it in a different way.
Because I think also, to summarise what you said there, basically when people are uncertain, so in the face of uncertainty, most people do nothing, right? They procrastinate. True. And they don't make a decision. What they need is a degree of certainty. I know it sounds like an oxymoron, but a degree of certainty in order to commit. And the more you're asking them to commit, time and money and energy, then the more certainty they need. And maybe a way of looking at it is, a year ago or so before this kicked off, people were happy to make a degree of commitment. Let's say with our business, let's say they needed 70% certainty, and then the rest of the 30% they would do on belief and trust, right?
Yeah.
They trust in us and believe in what we're doing, and that was okay. Whereas maybe now, what people need is 85% or even 90% certainty, and they don't feel they have the belief and the trust that they need in order to kind of push it over that line, to make up that 100%, if you like, in order to make that absolute commitment. And maybe, if you're listening to this right now, that might be what's happening for you, which is your clients, let's say you're asking for a degree of commitment, financial investment and energetic investment at time. And let's say you could sell on 60 or 70% certainty and the rest would be made up with they look you in the eyes and just trust you and trust what you're doing, and they're willing to risk a degree, a percentage of that. And now maybe all it is your client base needs 80% as opposed to 60%, and you're going in with the same sales approach, the same sales methodology, the same sales strategies, and you're not getting to that 80% point that they need in order for them to be able to say, yeah, I'm going to go for it. Because I do think that, if you look at things like Deliveroo and stuff, no one's sitting there really procrastinating on ordering pizza right now. It's gone through the roof, right? Everyone feels certain they have enough money for a pizza and to create a night out in, and therefore those kind of businesses have really taken off. But for us, for example, money-wise, we're relative investment compared to where they are at. I wouldn't say we're expensive by a long shot, but we're a relative investment. What we are, however, is we are a big energy and time investment, because Success Groups only works if you're fully committed to it, and we do demand a fair degree of investment of time and energy for it, in our products. And therefore, with the degree of uncertainty that's out there in the world right now, they just are finding it harder to get to that point. And the point I made the other day to the group, you weren't there, Trace, and the point I made to the group was actually how we used to be able to sell almost like on 3 touch points. You'd have one conversation with someone who'd say been referred to us. We'd then bring them into an event where we would show them what we did and explain what we do. A degree of people would just sign up there and then. A high proportion of people would just sign up there and then. And then other people just maybe needed one more phone call after that from you in order to join. And when we took the business online, which obviously changed some of the cultural and changed some of the products and stuff, actually what we found was we can't get sales in that way. We can't rely on just 1 point, 2 point, 3 point in. And actually our sales process has been extended now to more points of contact, and we're doing a lot more nurturing. Do you want to talk a little bit about what we've brought in order to do more of that nurture and handhold, and to again, I think what it does for me, say if I'm wrong, but it does also build a lot more of that sort of trust and belief in that, as well as we're building that certainty as we go.
Yeah, so there's a number of things that we've done. So we took the opportunity, which we did advise lots of business owners to do, was really invest in their business during last year. So, it kind of felt quite counterproductive when everyone was freezing and holding on to their money. But we made a decision to make an investment because we knew the market was changing. And so we completely rebranded so that the website reflected who we were, or where our clients were today as opposed to where they were yesterday, which is a very different place. So that was number one, was really making sure that the website reflected who we were, but also made it easy to navigate and easy to understand what it was that we fundamentally offered.
So I did just jumping in.
Yeah.
I did an episode on that just recently, which is about talking to where your customers are at now.
Yeah.
And if you're communicating in the way that you were communicating to them a year ago, given the incredible degree of change, and I talked about how we'd seen 5 years worth of change in 6 months last year, how actually it's not surprising that we weren't hitting the mark with our sales conversation. So what I'll do is I'll dig that episode out and I'll put a link, or at least put the description, put the title of that episode so you can go and find that as well, because I actually think that ties in really nicely with what you're about to say right now.
Yeah, so that's number one. Number two is we have a policy of putting our members out first. So it's all very well us saying, we're amazing, but actually what really matters is the impact and results that we're having with our members. So we made a conscious decision to really put our members front and centre, which has a dual impact. So obviously it significantly helps our members, so it raises profile, but also it means that it's not about us saying that we're good, it's about our members talking about real life experience of what it was like to work with us, and it helps future clients then relate. So if there's we had somebody recently actually who is a content writer, and on our website there's another content writer who's basically walked the path that she wants to walk, and it just makes sense in that moment that you would want to walk the path of that particular person. So making our clients front and centre, we put a lot of energy and effort around case studies, testimonials, that kind of thing, and we've really stepped our game up with that. Luckily we have lots of material for that, so that's what we've done at that end. We also do a lot more work pre-event, so we have conversations with them beforehand. We want to find out about them, are they really right for us, what are they trying to achieve, what are some of the challenges, really trying to help them as best as we can before the event. We then have the event, we then do a follow-up process after the event, so again having conversations referring back to what they mentioned were challenges beforehand. If you've done your work in the sales process of really understanding what your customers' challenges are, what they're trying to solve, but taking it that one step further, which is what is the impact of them solving that problem that you can potentially help them with, and what is the impact also of them not solving it. If you've done that work beforehand, you can refer back to that afterwards, so after the event or whatever it is that you've run or part of your sales process.
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
I actually think what's really important there is the fact that people do forget very quickly.
Yeah.
So when you engage with them at the beginning and they acknowledge a real pain and they see a potential solution in you, and we've seen this a number of times,
of course.
and you then down the line show them explicitly how you can solve that pain and give them what they want, they very quickly can forget that that's why they came to you in the first place, and they'll find another reason not to move forward. Right. Even though you've tackled what they wanted head on. They even admit to you that you're the solution to that problem, but there's another problem that pops up, or another, I don't want to use the word excuse, right? But let's use the word excuse for the time being. Another excuse, another reason why they don't move forward. And I think what you're doing there is really important, which is you've got to gather data so you know what you're selling to and what you're selling against in terms of what their fears are, their doubts are. But also it's really important that you move them slowly along the path, saying, right, do we both agree that this is the right thing?
Yeah.
And then rather than going through the whole process, trying to do one close at the end and then rely that they've come with you all the way along that path with you, and then you're trying to almost close them on every part of what they've said, rather than actually get the agreement, right, if we can show you this, is this going to be something that's right for you?
Yeah.
And have we shown you that? Yes, I have. Right, we can move to the next part of this conversation.
And then the key bit, which is the clincher. So once you've got somebody to a point where they're right on the edge, the clincher for me has been reference calls with our existing members, which has been utterly invaluable. I did it recently for someone else actually who asked me to be a reference call for them. And I think when you've got a product that your customers buy into, they will happily do reference calls for you, and you want to start creating a culture around that. So we really value reference calls from existing members, especially if they're in the field that the person you're trying to convert is in. It's just so invaluable hearing from somebody that's been, a client for 18 months or 2 years, that have been using your products and seen the impact. So they're the real clinchers. Not something we, I kind of had it in my kit bag, but I wasn't rolling it out to this degree before all this happened. But now that conversation is really helping to just allay fears that we are the real deal and we are getting results, and it is really worth making that commitment.
And I think you're 100% right. We used to always have this up our sleeve, right? Where if someone was really close and there was just that little bit of nervousness, and of course there's going to be a degree of nervousness because they don't know for sure exactly what it's going to be like until you buy. They don't know exactly what they're going to get until they've spent 6 months, 12 months with us. So you've always got to have a degree of that doubt in there. You're never going to get 100% certain. Well, I say that. Occasionally we do find people that are 100% certain. Most of the time there's a degree of doubt in there. And what we do is we alleviate as much of that as possible where the opportunity massively, massively outweighs the degree of doubt and risk that's sort of left as far as they see it. But I think what's really important there actually for people to know is that, we talk about our customer base, I mean, they're our members. We talk about them as being part of our business, and we see them as part of our business, and we treat them as part of our business, not just a product or a commodity or as a client. We invite them into our business, and they belong to our business, and they're part of our business, and we're grateful for them. And because of that, we utilize them as a part of the business, and they're happy to do that. And I think it's really important for people listening that if you do have a large list of successes, of customers that are happy, don't shy away from asking them to have conversations with prospects, because it's a bit like a live testimonial, but even in today's world, we still don't trust necessarily testimonials. Written testimonial we trust less than a testimonial with a picture, for example, don't we? And then a video testimonial has the most credibility. But even now, I don't know about you, but even I look at it sometimes and I think I'm not trusting 100% that video testimonial either. And I think having someone on an actual phone for 20 minutes, half an hour, sometimes people spend an hour and a half with our members, asking them, what's it like? What am I going to get? And we don't prime anyone. We don't prime our members. Right? We don't say, right, you've got to do a sales pitch for us. What we do is say, right, can you talk to them and just share with them exactly what you've got out of it, how it works for you, and just listen to whatever their questions are. Because we trust that they're going to say the things that are either going to attract the right people, or potentially they'll repel the ones that aren't necessarily 100% right for us. And I think it's really important for people to understand that actually these, your customers and your clients are a huge part of your credibility, and we shouldn't just sit back and rely on a written testimonial or even a video testimonial or case study, for example.
I think I just want to add something, because I think the key thing, I think the world has shifted. Well, I know the world has shifted. So, whilst there are still hardcore salespeople out there, I think the time is coming for that to come to an end. And I think more than ever, we need to come at sales with a degree of compassion for the client that we're selling to. Sales and compassion don't typically go together. It doesn't. It's not typically what people consider is a good match. But I think if you come at the sales process with complete compassion for where your client is, I think you can be way more effective than if you come at it with the hardcore, I'm going to nail your feet to the floor, regardless of anything. I think that's passion first, I think, for me at the moment.
And that's a massive, right? And that's a huge thing, right? Because it is frustrating. It is frustrating when you're in the presence of someone, right? And I'm sure the small businesses listening, right? I'm sure you're not the kind of put on the thumb screws, put your foot in the door kind of salespeople, because very, very few people are actually like that. The professional, hardcore, used car salesman type energy. But actually, I do think it's important, because I think even for us guys, you're looking at someone in the eyes that you can help, you're right for, you can see their pain. We're set up, our entire business, and I'm sure people listening, your entire business is set up to serve and to help and to make people's lives better in some way, shape or form. And therefore, it can be so infuriating, and you can get frustrated, and I've done it myself, if I'm honest. You get frustrated with the very people you're trying to help, because it's almost like they won't let you help them, and it's not, and that's not what they're doing. They're just scared, right? And if you bring the compassion of where they're at, that they are just scared and they are nervous, it does change your energy with them. It's like having a child, isn't it? And, you know, when you realise a child isn't just playing up or acting up or being a pain in the child is actually scared or nervous or has anxiety, it's much easier to be compassionate. Same with a dog, right? If a dog bites you and you think it's just because it's an arsehole, it's very hard to have any compassion with a dog. But if a dog bites you and you realise the dog's been abused and you might not, you know, you still feel the pain, but especially with dog people like you and I, you're going to have a little bit more compassion for that dog than you would do if you just thought it's a complete arsehole. And I think that's probably something really important to understand, is people aren't going out to be arseholes, even if it feels like, you know, you're doing this entire sales process, you're putting all this energy in, you've done everything right, and then they pull some bullshit kind of fill-in excuse out for not doing business with you. If you can bring that compassion and understanding to it, it's better for you, obviously, but also, of course, you're going to handle anything that comes up in a much, much better way.
Yeah.
And I think it's just, you know, I'm thinking about some people just recently, actually, who I know should have joined our club but didn't. And, you know, you from a business owner's perspective, you put so much energy out there to get your sales right. You know, you put so much energy out there to get your product right, so much energy to get that lead in the first place, and then to have someone so close and then just fear getting in the way or just doubt getting in the way or whatever. What would your advice be, right? So we're at the moment, let's say we're at the point of no return, right? So they've said whatever they've said, right? And it may or may not be based on real reality, but it's their reality. Yeah. You can continue just to push, right? In which case you just become that used car salesperson and you just become a bit of an arsehole, right? And no one wants that. What's your advice at that point? So you have to back away. Let's say you've made a decision, and here's a really a big caveat. Don't make that decision too easy or too early to back out, because it's getting uncomfortable for you. It's really about being pragmatic and saying, right, we're not getting anywhere here now. It's over, right? What's your advice at that point there when you have to let them go? How do you disengage in a way that leaves the door open for them, but also leaves the door open for the business, like say for us, to be able to reapproach them in a way where the relationship that we've spent so long nurturing, you might not have got the sale, but you haven't lost any of the relationship that you've built in that time and trust that you've built so far. What's your advice at that point of disengagement?
Okay, so you made an interesting point there. So the sales experience you mentioned. So I've had 15 years as a professional salesperson and then 12 years in this business in sales. So a bit longer than the 20 years. 27. Yeah, quite a few years longer. And George is absolutely right. So don't use this scenario as an excuse to pull out of the sales process, right? So, and I know sales is a really uncomfortable subject for a lot of business owners. So you have to keep pushing, basically until you get to the point where it's a clear no. And when it's a clear no, however frustrating that clear no is, what I always look to do, so we've got a case in point actually. So somebody that I was working with absolutely 100% know that we are right for this particular person. Just know it to my soul that we could help them. The challenges that they're talking about is right in our sweet spot. I know that we can help them, but they've categorically said, no, it's not for them for all the wrong reasons. I'm 100% sure. So what I'm going to do with that, I've left it a week or so just to let the whole thing cool down a little bit. But actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to write a letter, a physical letter, to them with a little gift to say, you know, this is where I'm at. Totally respect your decision. Let's keep the door open. Here's a little gift. Perhaps when things change, you know, we might have this conversation again. Now, the reason I'm going to do that is because I know that person has made a decision through fear. It's not the right decision for them, I don't believe. They've made a decision from a place of fear. And what I want to do is compassionately keep the door open for them so that if they have a little bit of a rethink, then the door is wide open, because at the moment the door is closed. How do you disengage? Again, you come back to compassion. The only time you find it hard to disengage is when you feel like you've somehow been affronted or, you know, it's personal. That's when you can't disengage. When you come back to compassion, so when you come to a place of really understanding where that person's coming from, and in this particular case, they're just scared. They're just scared of making a long-term commitment when they just don't know what the landscape's going to do. You know, they've been hit hard by what's happened and they just don't know what the landscape's going to do. So when you come back to compassion, you then think about what's your intention. So my intention is to keep the door open on this person, to get them to realise that I understand where they're at, to keep the door open. So I'm going to write them a letter in the post, send them a little gift. It's impossible to ignore. And that just keeps the door open. So that's my advice. When you need to disengage, which you will do, you have to come back to compassion. Let go of the sensation that it is about you. It's got nothing to do with you. It's all about them. And yeah, come back to compassion every time.
And I think, you know, we're wrapping up in just a second, but I do think that it is important right now to understand that, you know, I've talked about how we might be able to, in the old days, you know, the old days, a year ago,
Yeah.
be able to close someone from not knowing this person, 2 touches, right? I mean, 1 call with you, in a room, bang, done, right? And I don't know, maybe it's taking 5 now, you know, in comparison to the 2 or 3 it was taken before. I think it's important to understand that these people, for example, they might just take a lot longer.
Yeah.
And whilst it feels like a lot of energy, not just to send a little gift now, that's quite easy, right? Yeah. It's a nice thing to do, by the way, but it's easy. But we're going to keep in touch with this person over the next however many months, right? And of course, it feels like a lot of energy to be spending on someone who's already said no. But actually, the fact that this person got to the point where they were literally like, I mean, on the line of saying
So
yes,
close.
it takes a lot of energy to get someone else back to that point.
Correct.
And it is worth the effort and the energy to stay in touch with that person, just to maintain all of the relationship that you've worked so hard on through the sales process to get to that point. You know, there is a school of thought, which is, you know, you push them and push them and push them. But what typically happens is, you know, if Tracey carried on pushing this person, I know what would happen is that he would just keep pushing back harder and harder.
Sure.
We'd get to a point where we literally fell out, right? Where he wouldn't take her call, he wouldn't take her email, and any gift she sent would feel like some manipulative sales process,
Yeah.
and he'd probably just throw it out or something, right? So for me, I do believe in all markets, by the way, but especially now, I don't think it's like a Hail Mary, all for the close or nothing, you know? I do think there's a place where you can get them right up to the line just before maybe you start to really piss them off, or just to the point, because you pushed this guy hard. It wasn't like you made it easy for him to say no.
Absolutely.
So let that be said. You know, I'm putting that caveat in over and over again. This isn't saying, oh, would you like to join? No. Okay then, and then send them a gift and come back to them 6 months' time. This is a full-on sales process where we are making it uncomfortable for them in the sense that they have to give us a definitive decision with real reasons that we can accept, right? And they have to do that for us to disengage. When we decide at that point to disengage, it's about making sure that we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. We've lost the deal, we've lost the sale, we've lost the member, but what we haven't lost is the relationship we've built, the trust of that person. Potentially that person becomes a referrer. If they never join us, it's possible they end up becoming a referrer of ours because we treated them so well and we weren't that outrageously pushy place. And I think that's the hardest thing, and I'll do an episode again, and I'll probably invite Trace on that one as well with sales, which is, you know, how do we find that balancing point, you know, between being full on with sales, pushing sales hard, but equally not pushing so hard that you either violate your own values yourself, and, you know, you go to bed like feeling dirty, or you just go around pissing the whole world off because you're just some out and out full on hardcore salesperson. And I think you have to find that line for yourself. I'm sure there's people out there that felt Tracey was pushed too hard, I'm sure. And I'm sure there's people out there that we definitely would have not been able to help and even save their businesses and create incredible success in their businesses had Tracey not pushed as hard as they are. So this isn't about you taking your lead from every customer and saying, oh, you know, because some customers might feel you're too pushy just for saying, would you like to buy my product? And other people need you to be with them and nurturing them for a month of non-stop kind of attention, and handling their objections in order to sell to them, and they'll be the most grateful people for it. And we have a whole bunch of members that I know are super grateful that Tracey did push as hard as she pushed for that sale. So you have to find that line, and we'll do an episode on that at some point in the near future. Right, so we're going to wrap it up there. Tracey, thank you for joining me on this episode.
It's been a pleasure.
Super valuable. 27 years of sales experience, 12 with us. I do a little bit of sales here and there, but I'm not going to lie, it all comes under Tracey's. I educate people with sales, do content around sales. Tracey literally does the sales at the front end, so I rely on her to let me know what's happening in the world from our experiences, and of course we're always getting feedback from our members as well. I hope you are not having too difficult a time out there. If, however, you are finding sales harder than you were, It probably is because it is more difficult for many small business owners. That doesn't mean you can't do sales. It certainly doesn't mean you shouldn't do sales. And as I said right at the beginning of this episode, sales is the only thing that's going to grow your business, and it's the only thing that's going to save your business if you're finding yourself in real dire struggles. So I will see you next time. Until then, if you want to find out a little bit more about what we're doing at Bigger Bright Bolder and our success groups, please do go to biggerbrighterbolder.co.uk. See what we're doing, whether you're launching your business right now from scratch, whether you've got a business doing 20, 30, 40, maybe even 50, 60K, and you want to build that business to 100K plus, or if you're doing 100K plus, maybe even up towards $500,000 in turnover, and you want to scale that business, then we have groups of ambitious business owners just like you doing that very thing, who would love to be a part of your entrepreneurial journey of success. I will see you next time. Until then, as always, be successful.
Leveling up. Extreme business growth through raising your game. When what was once extraordinary becomes ordinary, you know you've leveled up.